Hey y'all, Scott here. You ever look at a baby and you're like, F yeah, now that's what I call a baby. And then 4 years later you're like, well, that's a lot more underwhelming looking back at it all. Super Mario 3D World.
Upon release, Super Mario 3D World was initially met with critical acclaim, receiving incredibly high, if not perfect, scores. I originally played through the game at launch and eventually 100% completed the game as Mario, but I haven't really played it since. Looking back at the game, it definitely doesn't seem as great as many reviews made it out to be or how I perceived it at launch. So today I'm going to be revisiting Mario 3D World with a more critical eye, but first, a little background. In January of 2013, a few months after the Wii U launched, Nintendo hosted a Nintendo Direct strictly about the Wii U. This Direct revealed a few big games early in development, but also announced that a new 3D Mario game was in the works and would be shown and playable at that year's E3. That's all we knew about it, and because of this, I and countless others were expecting something in line with either Super Mario Galaxy 3 or a game that is as big of a leap forward as Galaxy was from Sunshine, or Sunshine was from 64 in terms of scope and spectacle, that is. Of course, when you get down to it, Sunshine and 64 had larger worlds than Galaxy, but Galaxy was something special. It felt like a huge leap forward for the Mario series, but still respectful of the series' roots. E3 2013 rolled around and that trailer came with it. Honestly, one of the most underwhelming trailers Nintendo's ever done. No to Galaxy 3, no to a wholly new 3D Mario, but instead, yes to a sequel to a handheld 3D Mario game, Super Mario 3D Land. 3D Land was a great game, but I personally feel a lot of that had to do with it being on a handheld, specifically the Nintendo 3DS. That game was completely designed around the hardware of the 3DS, so I don't think anybody played that game and said, well, I gotta play this on a console. Also, 3D World came at a time when Mario games were released every single year. I personally felt that this was more of an accident by Nintendo, as it made sense that these releases would line up like this. However, people were already starting to become fatigued on Mario games, and within the past few years, the Mario games that have come out were being criticized for playing it safe, feeling samey, or having little personality. 3D World debuting like this and looking like nothing more than an HD version of 3D Land or just a 3D New Super Mario Bros. Game graphically and level design wise turned some people off. Also, this game straight up did not look as good as Galaxy from the get-go. Polygon wise, of course 3D World gets the edge, but artistically, it felt as basic as Mario could get. It didn't have anything crazy going on here, it looked like just another Mario game. The trailer also unveiled the cat suit and 4-player co-op with the characters from Super Mario Bros. 2, Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Toad. There were elements of creativity and fun in the trailer, and the people who demoed the game at E3 said it was a lot of fun, but this wasn't a Mario game that shocked or awed. This was, as I previously stated, just another Mario game. Fast forward to October 1st, 2013, Nintendo hosted a Nintendo Direct and started off with the loudest 180 in all the land. The second trailer for 3D World was phenomenal and put to rest a lot of concerns I had about the game. Finally, some personality, some great fast-paced big band music, cool power-ups including the introduction of the double cherry. The first trailer made Mario 3D World look lifeless, while this trailer made the game look like gallons of fun. After this trailer, right before the game launched, Nintendo basically spoiled everything about the game, just trying to get everybody interested in it so Wii U sales would finally be something to gloat about. I then played and loved the game, and here we are now. Let's start off with just a quick overview of what Mario 3D World is all about. 3D World closely follows the structure of Mario 3D Land. Elements from 3D Land are still here, such as similar looking cutscenes, art style, enemies, camera angles, the game completion method, so on and so on. This is basically taking the structure of 3D Land and making a new game out of it. The plot here is that Bowser has kidnapped the 7 Sprixie princesses and you just save them because of the good Samaritan you are. You have to go through 8 worlds to beat the game, but afterwards there are 4 bonus worlds with much more difficult levels. Each standard world has around 8 or so levels, with special levels thrown in as well. This includes enemy blockades, mystery house challenges, which are basically gauntlets where you have to fully beat each challenge in a row to win, and Captain Toad levels. These levels are 3D maze-like boxes where you control Captain Toad who can't jump. These levels would then lead to the spin-off title Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, which is basically an entire game of these types of levels. These are fun little distractions, and they're spread out pretty evenly throughout the game. These are accessed via the world map, which is different compared to other Mario games. Think a 2D overworld map, such as the one in Mario World, but you can move around in a 3D space. This is completely superfluous. It's cool, but doesn't add anything to the game. There are random little secrets, but most of the time they amount to nothing more than finding a 1-up or a few coins. Standard levels in 3D World are structured like an everyday Mario level, just get from point A to point B. Just like 3D Land, 3D World is structured as a 2D Mario game, but playable in 3D. The playable characters retain a few of Mario's moves from his 3D outing, so moves like the long jump, ground pound, climbing, and so on. It was like this in Mario 3D Land as well, and these moves aren't necessary at all, but are fun to fool around with or use expertly if you're a seasoned pro. To be fair, they weren't necessary in the traditional 3D Mario games, but there were more areas where the moves were useful. These moves help the game feel a bit more like a traditional 3D Mario game, so while the level design feels straight out of New Super Mario Bros., you can still long jump, for example. Controls are more restrictive than any other 3D Mario. You can only move in 8 directions, which is already a step down from 3D Land's 12. This was done more than likely due to the more precise platforming needed in the game compared to Mario's other 3D outings, and due to the lack of 3D coming from 3D Land, it makes sense to lock the player into a certain angle so it's easier to make a jump. There are 2 levels of running here. The first one is just a standard run, but suddenly Mario poofs out a dash out of nowhere. Some have complained that this has led to their untimely deaths totally in real life, but I think it's fine. It doesn't really add anything, but I sometimes find myself running in circles to get to my top speed. I'm fine with how Mario controls here. There are some definite differences from previous games, but they're completely usable and it still feels like Mario. There are 2 types of collectibles in each level. One is the green star, in which there are 3 of each per standard stage. These act as the star coins / medals from New Super Mario Bros. And Mario 3D Land respectively. These are required to access the rest of the game, so they act similarly to stars and shines in the traditional 3D Mario games in that regard. In fact, I'm pretty sure they made them stars instead of star coins to make this game feel like Galaxy, and Galaxy 2 specifically. The other collectible is the stamp, which is completely optional. These can be used on Miiverse and are superfluous to beating the game, but to get to the final world, you're going to have to nab them all. There are more power-ups than ever in 3D World, with the headliner this time being the cat suit. It's great and allows for more exploration, but that just makes me wonder how great this would have been in a more sandboxy Mario game. The double cherry is cool, but it's only used to access areas that say you need blank amount of players to access this. I always felt like that was cheap and just really uncreative. The double cherry could have been an excuse to add creative puzzles that require multiple players. And hey, if you're playing in single player, a double cherry could be used for said puzzles. The power-up is fun to use though and makes things pretty chaotic, which can be a blast sometimes. The other power-ups are returning: the Fire Flower, Boomerang Flower, Super Leaf, Invincibility Star, you know the drill. The Mega Mushroom makes a comeback in which it's as prominent as it's always been, and by that I mean it barely shows up. We also have various items the player can interact with, such as propeller boxes, cannon boxes, and light boxes. These are helpful within specific levels that are made easier by using these boxes effectively. The potted piranha plants can be picked up to eat other enemies, and ice skates can be acquired to make icy areas more manageable. There's also some throwaway items, such as the Goomba masks and baseballs, and I've never been a fan of shell power-ups in Mario games. A major feature of this game is the addition of clear pipes. I mean, they add some different elements to the game, but nowhere near groundbreaking. These were highlighted when the game was first revealed, and they're fine, but they're not integral to the game by any means. The music in 3D World is phenomenal. A big band style was used for most tracks here, and it is just fantastic. There's a lot of reused music from past Mario games, however. It's kind of Mario tradition at this point to bring back old tracks, but if I had to complain about the soundtrack in any way, it would be I wanted more new tracks. Finally, let's finish this quick overview by talking about the different characters. The 4 main characters from Mario 2 are back in full swing. Mario, who's the all-around character, Luigi, who has a great jump but bad traction, Peach, who can float in the air but is slow, and Toad, who can run the fastest but jump the baddest. Unlocked after beating World Star Dash 2 is Rosalina from Mario Galaxy, who has a spin attack which can help you achieve greater height while jumping. However, she's the slowest of the bunch. Overall, the multiple characters are more so here to bring choice to the player. Find the character that fits your playstyle the best. Everything can be beaten by each character, but it's up to the player to decide which one is for them, which I'm alright with. However, there are some optional parts that require specific characters, and these are nothing more than just a button with the character's emblem on them. I feel like this is just a really cheap way to prolong the game's playtime, as in, oh, now I have to replay this level as Toad to get a green star or a stamp. I think there could have been more creative uses for these character-specific areas, like instead of just going back as a character to hit a button, why not have a portion of the level that can only be accomplished by using a specific character's traits? Mario 3D World is another Mario game, but that also means it's a good game, and while I loved it originally, I'd comfortably say I like it now and it's worth your time. So now that I've gone over what the game's like and dabbled in my opinion of it, what are some points of criticism in Mario 3D World? 3D World looks great in very specific instances. It feels like the art style was engineered to look good in certain conditions, and when the designers wanted to get a little crazy with the level themes and in tandem with that, the lighting, the character models and worlds just don't look great sometimes. I'd say everything looks pretty good in the first level, for example. The colors just pop and it feels lively. Then we go on to Sprawling Savanna, which, yikes! Everything looks like it's made of plastic. Also, this level has a bit of an open playground area in it, the only one in the game that really harkens back to the classic 3D Mario games. The problem with this is the game wasn't made with a camera like this in mind, and because of that, some really gross pop-in occurs. Now that's in terms of how things look graphically with polygons and colors. I like how colorful the game can be, and in specific instances it looks great, and in other instances it looks way too plasticky and not great. This game doesn't really have its own identity visually. They don't do anything here that wasn't done in 3D Land or the new Super Mario Bros. Games. In terms of the level designs, everything feels so artificial and geometric. These stages don't feel like worlds and could have really benefited from some extra detail being added here and there. Like the Mario Kart homage in the game just has a bunch of roads and that's kind of it. The background is completely barren. Like, why not make it look like an actual racetrack from Mario Kart or add some cool little details like billboards and a crowd cheering you on? It feels like a lot of these levels were created with a level editor, just placing things within a tile set. I'm not hating on the level design themselves in terms of being fair and functional, mainly the look and ambiance of the stages. Not focusing on the little details, just giving you the bare minimum to get to the point. When you look at a game like Mario Sunshine, everything looks organic. It feels like a world that's lived in and looks fun to explore. Mario 3D World just feels like an obstacle course with a stock Mario art style and really nothing more in most cases. Multiplayer is one of 3D World's biggest selling points. A 3D Mario game that can be played with up to 4 players? Sounds fun, and it is! It's better than the new Super Mario Bros. Games because here everybody has more room to run around and do their own thing. My problem with the multiplayer is that it's just not that crazy inviting as a multiplayer game. Like, I just hop in my profile and play random Mario levels I have to find with my friends if I already beat the game. Why not have some separate modes, like a coin battle mode, which is in new Super Mario Bros. Games? Why not have like a playlist of 3 randomized levels you can play with your friends and the game then tallies up who won overall of the 3 stages? I just wanted the game to have a multiplayer specific mode rather than just having to hop into the regular game and find my own fun. And also, the camera can be pretty difficult to deal with in multiplayer sometimes. I think being the only 3D Mario game on the Wii U really hurt 3D World, which isn't necessarily fault of the games, but rather the people who put this game into development, rather than a traditional 3D Mario. There are now 3 definitive types of Mario games: the standard 2D Mario, which is new Super Mario Bros., the in-between 2D 3D Mario, which is Mario 3D Land and World, and the sandbox 3D Marios, Mario 64 and Sunshine. I think it makes sense to have the in-between games to help novice players ease into the traditional 3D Mario games, but really only if there's a traditional 3D Mario game for them to ease into on the console. Mario 3D World works better as a supplemental game rather than the only game. Also, as the Wii U's only 3D Mario game, it makes pretty lame use of the gamepad. This all feels like an afterthought that they shoehorned in to make the game feel like it would be impossible to do on other consoles. So much of 3D Land's design philosophy was brought over into this game, sometimes to a fault. 3D Land was designed completely around the use of 3D, as in if you crank that 3D slider up, you're going to be able to make jumps more easily. That's how the game was designed, and when you take the same basic style of game and throw it on a big HD TV with no 3D available, miscalculated or perceived jumps are more frequent here than before. It's not the biggest deal, but it just feels like Nintendo was in dire need of a 3D Mario game on Wii U and simply took the newest 3D Mario engine they had, which was for 3D Land, and made a new game from that. It still functions, but it works so much better on the 3DS because, you know, the game was made for that system. The level design in 3D World is also akin to 3D Land, and by that I mean most levels here are short. All the stages are well designed, however, I feel like they went for more of a quantity than a quality. Like, 3D World has a ton of levels, like a ton of levels. I would have rather 3D World go the Tropical Freeze route. In that game, Retro Studios designed longer, grander levels, but had less of them than previous Donkey Kong Country games. Having levels this short on a handheld makes sense, but this is a console game. I'm obviously sitting down for at least an hour to play this game. Give me something larger. I would have liked it if they combined all the levels with similar themes and design elements to create one big level. For example, Super Bell Hill, Mount Beanpole, and Really Rolling Hills all have the same aesthetic, grassy plains. Instead of being 3 short levels, I think it would have been cool if they were all combined into one larger stage. Like, imagine the stage starts off as Super Bell Hill, and when you get to the end of the section you see the giant mountain to scale of Mount Beanpole beanpole. When you enter the mystery box, it transports you to really rolling hills, and there you can complete the level. I think that would have made the stages more fun and more unique from another, as there wouldn't be so many separate grassy plain stages and would make the levels more memorable. Speaking of which... man, this game is forgettable. I can vividly remember so many things about Mario 64, Sunshine and Galaxy. The hub worlds, Bob-omb Battlefield, Cool Mountain, Whomp's Fortress, Bianco Hills, Rico Harbor, the Honey Hive Galaxy, Battle Rock Galaxy, Loop-de-Loop Galaxy, Toy Time Galaxy, Beach Bowl Galaxy, and so much more. Of the 93 standard levels in Mario 3D World, I can only truly remember like 5 or 6 of them. I remember elements of others, like, I remember the snowy stage with the Tanuki suit, or the carnival stage and whatnot, but not at all how I remember the other 3D console games. Remember King Caliente, King Bob-omb, the giant blooper gooper blooper? The boss battles in 3D World are nowhere near as memorable or unique. It's just kinda like, here's a funny looking guy, bop him on the head, goal reached. They aren't awful by any means, just not as clever or interesting as previous ones in the series. 3D World just doesn't really have a main focus. It goes all over the place in terms of themes. Like, it's a pretty standard Mario game, but everybody's a cat, and Bowser is driving a car, and then he makes his own theme park, and then we go to space, and there's a Mario Kart level in there somewhere. It's just kind of like random wackiness being thrown at you all over the place, but these spurts of originality don't really feel like they belong with each other in the same game. The game doesn't really have a theme or anything, so it just feels like instead of thinking long and hard about what should happen here, they just say, whatever, just put some baseballs there. That's kind of fun, but I think I would have rather had 3D World have a specific theme. Having a theme restricts you to thinking outside the box more, so everything feels like it belongs while also inspiring creative ways to tie things into the adventure. Just look at Mario Sunshine or Galaxy. Mario 3D World is a good game, but it just can't live up to the legacy of other Mario games to me. It's simple, pure fun, but at the same time forgettable. It's well made and looks clean, but feels kind of empty at the end of the day for me. I understand this is a Mario game for a more casual audience compared to Sunshine and 64, but I felt like Galaxy was able to achieve this. It maintained a lot of the magic from the first two 3D games while also being more accessible to newcomers. I think 3D World strays a bit too far from what made 64, Sunshine and Galaxy so special and simply feels like a handheld Mario game in HD, or just another Mario game. That doesn't mean it's bad, but simply not on the same level. I don't think it should have never existed, but instead it should have supplemented a true 3D Mario game. Like, what's the point of having only a 2D Mario game and a half 2D, half 3D Mario game on the Wii U? It always felt like to me that the half 2D, half 3D was to ease casual players into being more comfortable with playing a real 3D Mario game, but since we didn't have a real 3D Mario this generation, it felt kind of pointless.
I'd probably give 3D World a solid 7.5 out of 10, but I have to wholeheartedly love it because there's no true 3D Mario game on the horizon. Ah, yeah, that's a thing.